Welcome back to another installment of Going Mental. In the past, I've obviously talked about mental health, still talking about mental health, but really, uh, I guess, putting things into perspective, having been a counsellor, having worked with people in the police, done a lot of research for my book, Alone in the Blue Flame, which you see behind me, um, and talking to people that, I guess, that have had problems mental health wise, that have had problems with relationships, all kinds of things, um, and really getting an understanding of what sets them apart from people that can't move through it. We tend to focus on, obviously the patient or the people that have had the problems, but we don't always focus on what I call the positive deviants, right? Or other people have called it that as well. So the positive deviants are the people that go through the same shit that other people have gone through and have been able to come out the other side in a better way. They've been able to be more resilient. They've been able to do things with their lives, change the narrative of that. I've spoken before about ACEs or adverse childhood experiences, which are kind of predictors of people having problems in the future. When we understand why that is that way, you get a much better sense of what you can do to change those things. Even as governments, I was talking to a person just last night, um, literally about why government initiatives in mental health doesn't seem to work. One of it is, politicians are politicians. They're not subject matter experts on everything. They're just people that have been voted in. They make them a minister of health, mental health, whatever. They've got people giving them advice in the background because they're not, I want to say smart enough, it's not the right word, but not subject matter experts on that topic. Yes, they've got an agenda, they want to be seen, but literally they just want to get voted in again, right? So they're trying to get something, hopefully, to work and be, um, you know, uh, the their little golden goose where they go, wow, that really worked. We put things in play, we spent money on it, and we've seen a benefit. A lot of the mental health initiatives that we've seen from Australian government has been absolute crap. Let's be honest, right? Like, you know, suicide rate, has it gone down? I don't think so. Talk about Indigenous Australians, suicide rate gone down? No. We see more violence. We see a lot of these things. So understanding what we can do as a society, what we can do earlier on to interrupt those adverse childhood experiences, kids that we know are at risk. Why aren't we doing stuff at the school level that's much more proactive, much more targeted at helping a child? And one of the patterns, and this is where the pattern stuff that I'm talking about, I've spoken to people that have gone through a lot of that, having been a cop and seeing how, people treat people badly, how people continue to have a pattern within their family of domestic violence, of drug use, of, criminality, all that stuff. And yet it's like we just spin our wheels and we go, oh, well, we'll give them a handout for money and we'll make them work for the dole and all that. Where's the actual proactive process to go? Teachers need to be educated on how we can help with breaking the patterns, how we can help the kids become more resilient. And there's definitely different ways of breaking that pattern, right? Once we understand that, we go, why aren't people more brave? Why aren't people more resilient? Well, when they've had things happen to them as a child, they don't know good coping mechanisms. They don't have good role models that can teach them those things. They get angry about stuff. They're angry about life and they lash out at stuff. And then they're poor students. They're, you know, when they're poor students, teacher doesn't want anything to do with them. They become problematic. They hang with other kids that are the same. They might turn to drugs. They might turn to stealing stuff. All that stuff just adds weight to us as a society, adds to the trauma and the crap that goes with, that kid's not going to get a job. Now he's got no money. So he's going to go steal more stuff. Probably hang around with more people with drugs. So all these things are massive risk factors. And amazingly, it seems that we don't address it at that early level when they're coming into school, 5, 6, 7, you know, having that access to them, giving them much more insight around what they can do to change being in that defense mode, when you're in what I call red brain, which is the amygdala driven fight or flight response that we all have to survive, bad things happen to you as a child, you don't understand it. So it just becomes your pattern. You go, oh shit, dad's angry. I'm 5 or 6. I can't fight him. I've got to do something to minimize the harm that comes to me. Thankfully, some kids get out of it and they can change their life, or mum takes them away and they can change their life. But essentially, when you're under 15, that's why you see kids lash out when they're coming into their teenage years, is because they've been depressed. They haven't been able to stand up for themselves. Dad's a big dude or mum's a horrible woman, and, much more forceful. There's fear, there's all that patterns of stuff, and they got no way of dealing with it. And so as a society and as a school and all this kind of stuff, this is stuff that we need to be focusing on, where that really early years of school is the key to anything we're going to do. Crapping on about sending kids to karate lessons when they're 14 or 15, that's useless. It's useless. I'm not saying it might help them with karate, but it doesn't help the kid who's really traumatized, because they're probably the kid's going to get beaten up by the kid that's better at karate. So understanding that we want to be way more proactive. Why aren't we dealing with schools more? Why aren't we talking to people? I personally have been to the commissioner here in Queensland of mental health. No funding, can't help us. You talk about this stuff and it just becomes talk, right? There's a lot of smarter people even than me, out there that are doing this stuff, trying to do this stuff, falls on deaf ears. We hear about Lydia Thorpe. I know she's been in the news lately for, belting that drum about Indigenous Australians. But I also understand some of that pain, right? Like we talk about high risk suicides for Indigenous folk. Like, okay, put it on the agenda. Let's have that discussion. I'm not going to go into the whole King thing, but there are kids dying, there is a lot of violence, there's a lot of anger, and we need to address it at an earlier point in a different way. We keep doing the same shit over and over and over and expect a different result. What they call that is like one of the definitions of insanity, right? So, hey, here's an idea. Let's do something else. Let's try something else. Let's get multiple people and multiple organizations together, because they all have some skin in the game. The police, the schools, the healthcare. When I worked in healthcare, I worked in all those areas, mind you. So I worked for Victoria Police, been a cop, left, worked as a counsellor, went and worked with, in healthcare as an executive director of HR. I got to see stats that show young people just not dealing well with stuff, and we just don't have the forethought to focus earlier. Okay, there might be 3 or 4 different initiatives. One is early, one is now dealing with the person who's already got the problems, and one is, dealing with a person that's quite suicidal and have suicidal ideations, and then we have to have different ways of dealing with it. One is a change management thing, where if they're already thinking that way, we have to change what they're thinking. The other one is, being proactive and really focusing on helping them with the resilient part of their life. You can deal with bad things are going to happen to you as a human being. It's going to happen. People will die in your life. It will happen. You'll have pets that will die in your life. Big things. But how you deal with it and how we help you deal with it is the key part to us moving forward. I think if you're going to focus on it, seriously, I would love you to read my book, Lighting the Blue Flame, because it gives you a story related to a person who tries to change that stuff as a narrative within a school. Hope you got something out of that. Cheers, guys.